The shocking tale of Jonah, they discovered why he fled from his divine mission. Few knew what truly happened that night. The wind howled across the coastal town of Joppa, carrying an air of unease. Shadows danced along the harbor, whispering secrets of the deep. Jonah stood at the edge, his heart pounding as he gazed out at the waves crashing against the rocks. Behind him, the market bustled with life, yet he felt utterly alone. Whispers of destiny and disobedience hung heavy in the night air. Jonah, a prophet chosen by God, had always lived under the weight of expectation. The call to go to Nineveh felt like a storm brewing inside him. It wasn't just the distance or the fear of rejection, it was the burden of what he must confront. Nineveh was a city thick with sin, a place notorious for its wickedness. How could he stand against such darkness? Wasn't he just a man? His hands trembled. He swallowed hard, tasting salty dread at the back of his throat. As he turned away from the daunting task ahead, he felt a pull and inexplicable urge to flee. How strange it was, that an escape felt like a release. Without thinking, he found his feet moving toward the harbor, ready to board a ship bound for Tarshish, a land far from the calling. The sailors were busy and unaware of the storm brewing within Jonah's heart. They laughed, tossing cargo, their voices mingling with the cries of gulls. But to Jonah, it felt like a gathering tempest, yet, the night was not offering him peace. The moment the ship set sail, tension enveloped the craft. The skies darkened, and thunder rumbled ominously. Could it be a coincidence? The sailors' laughter turned to panic as waves surged dangerously, crashing over the ship's sides. Jonah fell to his knees, the realization striking him. This storm was no ordinary tempest. It felt sent, a divine rebuke for his choices. How could he disobey God? He whispered to himself, each word a dagger in his chest. His mind raced with the memories of divine encounters, visions of the people he was meant to save. A wave crashed down, soaking him to the skin. Fear gripped him, but beneath it flickered a strange hope. Was it too late to turn back? Could he still embrace his mission? As the crew cast lots to discover who brought this misfortune, Jonah's heart sank. The lot fell on him. Gasps erupted among the sailors. "What have you done?" they yelled. Their eyes were wide with disbelief, cutting him deeper than the cold sea air. Jonah's world spun. How could he confess what had done? How could he hope for their forgiveness after being the cause of their agony? As the ship lurched violently, Jonah was faced with a terrible choice between his life and the lives of others. Silence draped over the chaos as he contemplated surrendering to the waves. Would he truly leap into the unknown, embracing the watery depths, or would he ultimately find the courage to reveal his truth? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the tempest raged around him, Jonah's mind wrestled with a tempest of its own. Each wave that pounded against the ship echoed his growing despair. He could feel the weight of his decisions pressing down like the storm clouds overhead. The sailors, desperate and frightened, had turned their gaze upon him, their faith in whatever gods they worshipped faltering against the wrath of the sea. "Throw me into the sea," Jonah pleaded, his voice cutting through the chaos like clay being shaped into a vessel amidst swirling waters. He had thought that an escape into the depths might quiet the storm, perhaps even save the lives of those aboard. It was a profound irony, the prophet of repentance finding himself calling for his own demise to protect the innocent. Would that sacrifice be acceptable in the eyes of the Lord? The sailors hesitated, drawing back from his suggestion. They were a superstitious lot, accustomed to the tales of divine intervention but unwilling to cast away a man who had not earned their enmity. "No. We can find another way," one of the sailors cried, his eyes filled with both fear and compassion. sentiments that Jonah had not expected to glean from them, but Jonah knew deep inside that his defiance had woven a dark tapestry that ensnared not just him but those the Lord had never intended to harm. This storm is my fault. The answer lies in my surrender, not just to the sea, but to the calling I have evaded. His heart sank, not just at the acknowledgement of his folly but at the thought of the Nineveh people destined for destruction should his message of repentance never reach them. The crew, insistent on finding another solution, began to row with all their might, seeking to return to the safety of port. The ship lurched and strained against the waves that lashed them from all sides. However, the more they fought against fate, the greater the storm's fury became. Each moment felt like an eternity, and Jonah's resolve solidified within the crucible of despair. The very act of self-preservation became an impossibility. "God, forgive me," he murmured, the words slipping from his lips like the water now spilling over the edge of the ship. What good was a life saved if it meant sacrificing the lives of others? With a deep breath, he steeled himself, meeting the fearful gazes of the sailors one last time, praying they might see that sometimes the path to salvation came through sacrifice. That he turned his gaze to the churning sea, a mesmerizing swirl of darkness and fury, unnoticed by the world above. "Let your will be done," Jonah whispered, clenching his fists in resolve as waves crashed high. Without another word, he stepped to the edge of the ship, heart racing the moment before surrender filled with the gravity of his choice. Time slowed in those fleeting seconds, and an unexpected calm washed over him amidst the raging storm. What awaited him in those depths? Was it despair, or might he find the very presence of God in the abyss? As he leapt, the sea welcomed him, enveloping him in the cool embrace of the depths. The world above grew distant, the chaos fading into silence, yet a new voice arose within him, echoing through the stillness a call to something greater, and in the darkness of the deep, where no light broke through, Jonah began to understand the weight of divine mercy even amidst his rebellion. What lay ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, and as his consciousness ebbed, one question lingered in his heart: would even in the depths, the mercies of God prevail? The quiet darkness surrounded Jonah like a heavy cloak, wrapping him in the stillness of the deep. He was lost to the world above, where fear and chaos had transformed into an underwater serenity. As he descended into the abyss, the echoes of the storm faded, and all that remained was the weight of his thoughts. A tempest unmasked that in those fleeting moments, he pondered the distance he had traveled, not just physically but inwardly. How far had he run from his God? How could he have so easily chosen to flee from Nineveh, a call that had echoed within him, nudging at his heart with relentless insistence? "O Lord," Jonah murmured silently, the words sounding both weighty and threadbare. Was my heart ever truly in the message? As the darkness enveloped him deeper, a vision began to take shape in the stillness. He was no longer sinking but standing before a vast expanse. The waters shimmered like glass, and Jonah felt an insistent pull, a yearning to understand the divine resonance of mercy and justice that he had previously resisted. Then, through the twisting waters and shimmering darkness, he saw figures emerge. They were not the marred faces of the Ninevites he had imagined, but rather, a multitude of souls, each one holding the weight of sorrow, loss, and regret. Their eyes were hollow, and their voices whispered not with anger but with a plea for understanding, representing not enemies, but lost children. "Why have you abandoned us?" they seemed to ask, their silent cries echoing through the currents. Suddenly, he was flooded with a realization: their plight was intertwined with his own. His running away had not merely been an evasion of prophetic responsibility, it had been a rejection of his duty to be an instrument of mercy in a world steeped in darkness. "O God," he cried silently, "I see it now. The Ninevites may have been wicked, but so am I in my way." That in the depths, surrounded by the souls he had feared and judged, Jonah felt his own heart begin to shift. There was no escape from the truth of divine love that beckoned him to confront his prejudices and preconceptions. In this unexpected underground sanctuary, he began to confront his fears and the tangled roots of his own hatred and bitterness. He understood that God's love reached even the lost, the broken, and the wretched, including those he deemed unworthy of redemption. As Jonah grappled with this truth, he sensed a powerful presence enveloping him. It was as if the waters themselves became a yearning embrace, an invitation to surrender not just to the depths, but to the transformative power of mercy and grace. Is this what I feared all along? He mused. That the very love I had been called to share might not only extend to my enemies, but might change the very fabric of my hardened heart. His reflection brought forth a flicker of hope, yet he still grappled with the reality of his actions. Was there time to repent for his defiance? Would he ever see the light of the surface again? With these thoughts swirling in his mind, he felt a presence deep, profound, and yet familiar. Was the Lord still with him, even in this shadowy place? As he clung to the truth surfacing within him, a question hung heavy in the water: what grace might be waiting in the darkness, and would he have the courage to embrace it, or was he destined to remain lost in his own making? The weight of reflections bore down on Jonah as the shimmering waters began to swirl around him, gently lifting him upward, as if the depths themselves were responding to the stirring movements of his heart. In this strange, liquid sanctuary, he felt a pull, an urging to open his eyes not just to this realm of shadows but to the realities of his spirit. In that moment, he saw a flicker of light piercing through the murky depths, drawing him forward. It was neither blinding nor harsh, but subtle, warm, and inviting. The light began to reshape the figures he had observed, giving them form and context, illuminating their stories. Each soul transformed into a reflection of pain intertwined with hope. With every illuminated visage, their silent questions amplified, echoing within him: will you listen to our cries? Will you carry our burdens? Jonah's heart trembled. He realized that these souls encompassed not just the Ninevites but a greater tapestry of humanity, each thread representing lives seized by desperation and driven to darkness. The weight of their stories pressed upon him, eliciting remorse but also a renewed sense of purpose. How often do I turn a blind eye? He whispered, the acknowledgement cutting deeper than the dark waters surrounding him. Then, a figure emerged within the light, the visage of a woman, her expression serene yet sorrowful. As she approached, he recognized her from the distant lands he had once witnessed. Her tears were like jewels shimmering in the light. I am the voice of those you have chosen to ignore, she spoke, yet her words carried no anger, only a profound sadness. Each plea you dismiss is rooted in your own fear, Jonah. Can you not see that? Their wickedness reflects your own unwillingness to embrace them. He felt the ground beneath him. Did it exist, or were they only drifting in a stream of questions and confessions? Jonah's thoughts raced, grappling with the implications of her words. What had he truly abandoned? Was it merely the Ninevites he fled, or the very essence of mercy that he was meant to embody? As Jonah stood suspended in the light, the spectral figures drew closer, their faces illuminated by compassion. Though they seemed scarred by sin and sorrow, he began to notice the flickers of their inner light, ghosts wrapped in chains, desperate for release. They seek not vengeance, the woman whispered, but the healing you possess. Emboldened by this newfound understanding, Jonah felt a spark ignite within. But along with hope came the weight of a daunting realization: to return to Nineveh, he must embrace not only the call of the Lord but the full spectrum of compassion, the accepting of those he had once deemed beyond reach. Was he ready to face the steep terrain of forgiveness? Could he offer love to those he had judged harshly, allowing mercy to shape his actions rather than fear? As the pressure of these thoughts swirled within him, Jonah felt the waters shift again, and he was once more drawn downward, the light flickering out of reach. Panic seized him momentarily as he grasped for the warmth that had begun to fill his spirit. Did his moment of clarity mean he was free from the abyss, or was it a momentary flame destined to flicker out in the face of his unwillingness? Burdened with the weight of his mission and the urgency of understanding, a new question surfaced against the backdrop of his mind: what greater depths of love and pain await in the journey ahead, and could the act of facing one's fears transform not only a city, but the very core of the one sent to deliver the message? As Jonah's awareness wavered between the depths of despair and the stirrings of enlightenment, the waters began to envelop him again, guiding him into another realm, where the memories of his past intertwined with the solemn present. In this transitional space, he felt the soft brush of shadowy tendrils, remnants of his reluctance and fear lingering like whispers on the breeze. Suddenly, the dark transformed around him, revealing the bustling streets of Joppa, his former refuge. He observed himself several days earlier, boarding a ship headed for Tarshish, attempting to flee from the call of God. The sight brought a pang of regret. Young men worked beside him, laughing and speaking of journeys untaken and dreams yet to be fulfilled. "Why did you not stay?" A familiar voice echoed through time, belonging to one of the young sailors who had once looked to Jonah with admiration. "You were meant to guide us, lead us into the light." Jonah felt the weight of the unfulfilled responsibility settle on his shoulders. He could almost hear the voice of the Lord reminding him of his purpose, echoing through the lives he had left behind, those who had trusted him to speak wisdom. What had they seen in him that he could not recognize within himself? Back in the depths, a flicker of understanding washed over him. This wasn't merely about Nineveh, it was about identity and the burdens we choose to carry or reject. To lead, he thought, demands a depth of vulnerability and courage. The ache of self-doubt gnawed at his heart as he pondered how he had forsaken his role as a messenger. From the depths re-emerged the serene woman, her eyes piercing through the gloom. "You cannot outrun yourself, Jonah. The shadows you flee will follow you wherever you go," she said gently, yet firmly. "Look deeper into the burden you carry. What lies beneath your fear of the Ninevites?" He hesitated, the air around him heavy with uncertainty. The figures of the condemned flickered like flames as their stories begged for acknowledgement. Inevitably, he was confronted by the realization that the Ninevites were reflections of his own shortcomings, a mirror shrouded in sin that he did not wish to confront. Their sins whispered secrets not only of their inadequacy but of his own, the judgment he held against them spiraling back to himself. "Could it be," Jonah mused aloud, "that the very judgment I cast reveals my greatest fears? That I too am capable of such wickedness?" As he grappled with this new understanding, he sensed an urge deep within him, a desperate longing to rise from the depths, to swim toward that flickering light once more. Redemption beckoned, yet the journey was not without its obstacles. The stains of his past clung to him like barnacles, remnants of fear and pride that tethered him down. And the swell of doubt and reflection, a new vision unfolded before him. Jonah saw a great city illuminated under the soft glow of dawn. He could almost hear the heartbeat of its people, their voices mingling with the wind, a cacophony of joy intertwined with sorrow, the promise of hope laced with despair. "Will they hear my voice when I return?" he thought, battling the swirling murk of doubt. "Will my words carry the weight of my own brokenness? Or will I stumble, lost in my own inadequacies?" As he pondered this, the gentle current around him faded to silence, giving way to a profound stillness. His heart thudded in rhythm with the questions that surged within. Would compassion guide him to heal, or would fear solidify the chains binding him to the depths? In that weighty silence, he found yet another question arising from the shadows of his heart. What if the true call of God is not simply to deliver a message, but to first embrace our own humanity, recognizing that we are all in need of mercy, each in our own way? Jonah lingered in that place of profound stillness, where the chaotic echoes of his past surrounded him like gusting winds. As he closed his eyes, he surrendered to the tranquility, hoping it might lead him toward clarity. He felt a subtle tugging, as though unseen hands gripped his heart, urging him to rise higher from the depths that had begun to feel like a second skin. He thought of Joppa, the harbor town that had once seemed to cradle him in the safe comforts of familiarity. Suddenly, the image of the coastline spread before him, a place where he could find solace as he evaded the call of the Lord. Yet now, through the veil of his reflection, he saw the irony in his absence from Nineveh. Have I truly fled a city of sin, or am I trying to escape from the shadows within me? He whispered to the currents, allowing his whispered confession to wander through the swirling waters. With each successive thought, the weight of his defiance began to shift, exposing a core of fear that gnawed at him relentlessly. The woman materialized again, her ethereal presence radiating warmth amidst the shadows. "Fear not the city, Jonah. It is a mirror to your own trials. Converting the souls of others begins with humility toward oneself." Her words wove through him like threads of gold, reminding him that a journey of teaching was inextricably tied to a journey of learning. He envisioned the faces of the Ninevites twisted by desperation, yet yearning for change, much like his own heart had trembled in the face of uncertainty. "To show mercy is to find your own redemption," she added, her voice imbued with a mother's wisdom. As Jonah contemplated this profound connection with both the Ninevites and himself, the depths began to shift yet again. The currents swirled, and he found himself standing on the outskirts of Nineveh. The city loomed before him, vast and chaotic, with whispers of life spilling into the streets. The air was thick with potential for change, but he felt his heart race with trepidation. How can I be their messenger, Jonah questioned, when I have only recently begun to understand the message I must carry within my own soul? He braced himself against the reality that surrounded him, the cries for help, the lamentations of the broken. The city seemed to pulse, and within it, Jonah perceived the humanity that connected him with its people, binding them in shared anguish. As he watched a child stumble into a gathering of adults, a flicker of recognition sparked within him. In their eyes, do I not see fragments of my own spirit? He pondered. But the burdens of his past still clung to him like marred memories. He thought of the vessel that had carried him away, of the storms he had evoked, and the men he had abandoned in pursuit of self-preservation. Did they remember the words he had spun forth with conviction, only to vanish, leaving behind whispers of mistrust? Caught between duty and despair, the path to acceptance grew tangled in knots of judgment and fear. Lord, he breathed, confronting the divine once more within the chaos of Nineveh, how can one like me, a frail being, dare approach a people ripe for destruction? Can I be the voice that they need, or am I but a shadow of my own misdoings? As the sun began to set behind the great walls of the city, casting long shadows across the ground, a deep uncertainty stirred within him. Would he possess the courage to engage with those he deemed unworthy? Would mercy guide his heart forward, or would his own sins push him back into the depths? The weight of his unresolved questions hung in the air, lingering like a fog that refused to lift. With trembling hands and a heavy heart, Jonah set his gaze toward the horizon, where the last remnants of sunlight trailed into the darkened sky. He stood at the brink, faced with the choice that would not only determine the fate of Nineveh but perhaps of his own soul as well. And in that pivotal moment of reflection, a question burned within him: what if the greatest task of all was not to simply speak the message of God but to embody it, learning how to forgive and accept oneself before offering light to others drowning in darkness? As the last rays of sunlight slipped behind Nineveh's grand walls, Jonah felt the weight of each passing moment press heavily on his heart. He was not merely an observer at the threshold of this great city, he was a participant in a drama far larger than himself, a puzzle piece that felt disconnected but undeniably present. The air was thick with the scent of spices, incense, and the tangible hum of life, each sound a thread weaving through the tapestry of despair, hope, anger, and longing. How long would he stand there, caught between the shadows of his past and the flickering light before him? The child he had seen earlier lingered in his mind, a symbol of innocence and potential in a world often marred by choices unmade and paths untrod. If he is the future of Nineveh, Jonah mused silently, what does that make me? A harbinger of hope or a specter of regret? His thoughts spiraled inward until he caught a glimpse of an unexpected figure emerging through the vibrant chaos, a woman with eyes that seemed to capture the stories of many lives. She walked with a purpose, but her expression bore the weight of sorrow and strength. As she passed, Jonah felt an invisible tether pulling him toward her, igniting a curiosity that burned brighter than his fear. She paused, sensing his gaze, and in that moment, their souls exchanged an unspoken understanding. The heart speaks louder than the voice, does it not? She asked, her words steeped in gentle wisdom. Jonah, caught off guard by her insight, nodded slowly. I struggle to find the words that feel worthy of the message I must deliver, yet the truths I carry within me seem tangled and unclear. She studied him for a moment, as though peering straight into the depths of his being. You speak of worthiness, but you must remember every heart has its story, woven with both light and shadow. It is not perfection that binds us as one, but our shared humanity and the courage to embrace our own imperfections. Jonah felt her words wrap around him like a comforting cloak. He had spent so long measuring himself against an ideal that felt both unreachable and suffocating. But how can I speak to them about repentance, he whispered, when I am still mired in my own refusal to forgive? The woman smiled softly, by acknowledging your own need for grace, you invite them into a journey toward understanding. You are a vessel, Jonah, one who can allow the waves of mercy to flow not just toward others but also within yourself. Her words summoned memories of the stormy sea and the depths of the great fish, moments when he had been forced to confront the very essence of his being, fearful, reluctant, yet yearning for understanding. What lay beneath the surface was not just his flight from Nineveh but a flight from the truths he had buried deep in his heart. Is it not humanity's struggle to balance the weight of sin with the promise of redemption? The woman continued. Your mission transcends the city's walls. It is a call to awaken love and grace within the human spirit. Jonah was flooded with a mix of hope and trepidation. Peering into the woman's eyes, he wondered if she had faced her own storms, perhaps never fully emerging from their depths, yet choosing to walk forward regardless. If I step into Nineveh, what if they reject me? What if they turn their backs on the very hope I intend to bring? Do not mistake rejection for defeat, she replied. Even the greatest prophets faced hostility. The folds of life are stitched with both acceptance and scorn. Your job is to cast the seed, the nurturing lies beyond your grasp. He inhaled deeply, the complexities of the situation swirling tightly within him. Could he truly allow himself to be vulnerable? Could he put forth a voice that echoed a message of grace when his own heart quivered in uncertainty? Jonah found himself gazing back at the city, the battleground of redemption, and realized the correct question was that of courage, not assurance. As he contemplated this newfound understanding, the shadows lengthened around him, deepening into an intimate embrace. If acceptance of self is pivotal to my mission, Jonah wondered aloud, what does it mean then to accept those who have wandered far from the truth? Could I genuinely look into the eyes of my enemies, my fears, and my own mistakes and still choose to embrace them? The unanswered question hung heavily in the air, suspended between desire and dread, a quiet reminder that the journey ahead was as much about self-discovery as it was about the fate of Nineveh itself. Would Jonah have the strength to lay bare his own heart, to step into the unknown, igniting a flame of possibility even in the face of potential rejection? The path remained uncharted, but within that uncertainty lay the beginning of something profound. As the stars began to twinkle in the velvety night sky, Jonah stood at the city's edge, wrestling with the weight of his decision. Each heartbeat seemed to beat in sync with the pulsating life of Nineveh, a constant reminder that he was part of something greater, yet the very thought sent shivers down his spine. Could he truly enter this realm, a place filled with fear and uncertainty, to share his message with those he deemed his adversaries? The woman, her presence still lingering like a whispered prayer, turned to him once more. The stars above, Jonah, light the vastness of the sky, illuminating the darkness. Do you see them as mere flares in the night, or as ancient travelers, sharing stories of their journeys? What if your own voice, once so hesitant, could shine like those stars, an image of hope amid despair? He pondered her words, recognizing how easy it was to see the darkness surrounding him, yet failing to acknowledge the glimmers of light that might emerge from his own struggles. The child's innocent visage resurfaced in his mind, a reminder that this city was more than a hive of sin. It was a tapestry embroidered with lives, choices, and a yearning for something beyond themselves. The night deepened, and Jonah felt an insistent pull within him, an urge to walk toward the city, step into its narrative, and embrace its imperfections. Yet, as he approached, thoughts of judgment and the weight of his own escape swirled in his mind. What if my cowardice has set a chain of events in motion? What if I am the very reason they remain lost? He shook his head, attempting to dispel the suffocating tendrils of doubt. In the distance, he could see flickering lanterns illuminating the streets. Voices raised in laughter, tears, and passionate debates floated through the air. It struck him how alive Nineveh was, a realm of contradictions where sorrow existed alongside joy, and despair intertwined with hope. Can I carry a message of grace amidst such chaos? He questioned aloud, almost to the night itself. Would my words penetrate the hardened hearts I fear? Just then, a rustle in the shadows drew his attention. A young man stepped forward, clothes tattered and dirt marking his face, yet his eyes sparkled with a light that immediately reminded Jonah of the child. The boy, perhaps no older than 10, approached tentatively, a timid smile breaking the seriousness of his face. Are you a prophet? The inquiry hung in the air, both simple and profound. A profound stillness fell upon Jonah, forcing him to confront the weight of such a title. I am here to tell of healing, he replied, unsure if the words felt true. But I am still learning myself. The sea's roar reminds us that we have to fight to stay afloat, the boy said, his voice unexpectedly steady. I've seen people turn their backs on the truth because it hurts too much to face. But sometimes, they just need someone to believe in them. Do you believe in us?" In that moment, Jonah felt his heart leap and then crumble into 1,000 pieces. Who was he, standing before this radiant child, to speak of belief? The weight of his own hesitance crushed him like a wave crashing upon a rocky shore. He was meant to call them to repentance, yet here he stood, contemplating his own belief. Jonah whispered, "Is as complex and tender as a seed buried in soil struggling for warmth and light amidst uncertainty. I am afraid I am not worthy to plant such seeds of hope, but it's not about being worthy," the boy insisted, stepping closer, his voice almost a plea. "It's about having the courage to plant them anyway, then nurturing the growth that follows. Even the slightest touch by the light can change a life." Jonah's spirit stirred, and for the first time since coming to Nineveh, he questioned if his reluctance stemmed from vulnerability or an unwillingness to embrace the unknown. "What if I fail?" Jonah breathed, paralyzed by the weight of potential rejection. The boy's smile widened. "What if you don't?" "Sometimes, it takes one brave heart to ignite a fire in many." As the soft laughter of the city echoed around them, Jonah felt the choking grip of fear begin to loosen just slightly. Instead of being a fluke in the tale of Nineveh, he could become part of its heart, entwined with its struggles and triumphs, however small they may be. And while the path ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty, something new flickered within him, a fragile spark of hope. Is the worth of our existence measured by the messages we carry, or by the connections we nurture amidst shared struggles? He wondered aloud, the question drifting into the night, heavy with possibility, waiting for an answer to reveal itself. As dawn began to pull the night away, rays of soft light broke through the horizon, casting a warm glow upon the city of Nineveh. The vibrant streets stirred to life as merchants opened their stalls, the lively chatter of families intertwined with the fragrant scents of freshly baked bread and aromatic spices. Jonah stood transfixed at the city's edge, feeling both an intruder and a part of this collective heartbeat. Today, he had a decision to make, one that could alter the course of lives, including his own. He stepped forward, the dust of the day brushing against his weary sandals. The words of the boy echoed in his mind, a gentle reminder of the power of belief. "What if you don't?" It was easy to let doubt drown out the voice of courage, yet Jonah felt a longing for connection pulling at his spirit. He observed the people bustling about their lives, unaware of the looming message he bore. They seemed so ordinary, but deep within their ordinary furrows lay stories full of yearning and redemption. As Jonah approached the heart of the city, he was met by a woman cradling a baby against her chest and a looming man offering bread to children gathered at his feet. "You come at the break of day, stranger," she said, her voice tinted with both wariness and warmth. "What brings you to our doorstep?" Jonah's heart raced. This encounter was not what he had anticipated. Would the weight of his message crush the very souls he sought to save? I have come to share a word," he managed. "A word of caution and of hope." The man turned his attention toward Jonah, his kindness shining through the strength of his stature. "A word, you say? A prophet you seek to be?" The word hung in the air, heavier than Jonah could bear. "If I am such, then I must declare what has been shown to me. Yet, I do not know if my heart is strong enough." He took a deep breath, seeing the pity in their eyes and fearing their judgment should he falter. "Strong enough? We all have our burdens, friend," the woman said softly, her gaze unwavering. "But the truth often lies in how we tend our burdens, not the heaviness of them." Jonah felt vulnerability flood his senses. Stepping further into their circle, he realized how isolated he had allowed himself to become. "What do you believe?" he asked them both, seeking solace in communion. "Our belief is woven through our daily life," the man said thoughtfully. "We believe in the strength of community, the warmth of compassion, and the possibility of transformation." "You speak of caution, but do you speak of love?" Jonah's chest tightened. He had been so preoccupied with judgment that he had overlooked the essence of their humanity. Love is sometimes overwhelming. Fear constricts the heart, wrapping it tighter than any chains. "Then you must learn to breathe," the woman urged gently, her eyes softening. "When a heart learns to accept the pull of love, it finds freedom from fear. Start with something small. Open your heart to the lives surrounding you. You may discover your own." their words, filled with the wisdom of lived experiences, pierced through Jonah's defenses. He saw in their eyes a spark of longing, a hunger for answers that mirrored his own. What if he let go of the expectations imposed by the divine? What if he allowed connection to guide his actions rather than fear? I wish to believe, Jonah murmured, tracing the outline of his own unease. But doubt lingers like shadows at dusk. Then let it linger, the man replied, as shadows remind us that light exists. It is your journey, Jonah. Speak not only of darkness or judgment but of the light that follows. Share your story, admit your fears, and watch the walls begin to tremble. A hesitance echoed within him as he gathered the fragments of his resolve. He wanted to offer them something beneficial, yet he feared his own diminishing strength. The gentle breeze swirled around him, nudging him forward, reminding him of the threads of the tapestry that connected them all. Could it be, he pondered, that sharing our vulnerabilities creates spaces for healing? Or does it expose us to greater danger? The question lingered as he faced the faces before him, each holding their own tales draped in fragility and resilience. As the morning sun climbed higher into the azure sky, Jonah felt the first shimmer of understanding illuminating the corners of his heart. Perhaps, in relinquishing his fears and embracing the chaos of connection, he might just discover the power of love to transform even the deepest shadows. And so he stood, between fear and possibility, uncertain yet determined. Would the message he bore, intertwined with his own whispers of doubt and belief, kindle a flame of change in the city of Nineveh? As the first voices of day filled the air, Jonah confronted the question that lingered in every gaze: was trust in the unseen path the first step toward healing for himself and those he sought to save? As the sun rose higher in the sky, illuminating the vibrant colors of Nineveh, Jonah felt a stirring within his heart, a shift that whispered promises of renewal and hope. He stood on the brink of a choice, the weight of his past struggles hanging heavy, yet an unexpected light flickered in the depths of his being. There was something profoundly different in the air that morning, a fusion of chaos and clarity. As the streets came alive with the bustling sounds of its people, Jonah observed them with a newfound lens of compassion, each face a narrative woven with joys and sorrows, worth listening to. Stepping forward, he took a deep breath, allowing the sounds of laughter, arguments, and the calls of merchants to wash over him. The child with the radiant eyes from earlier flitted through his mind, a beacon of innocence challenging him to embrace his humanity. The realization dawned: sharing one's heart, imperfections, and revelations could instigate the very change he feared but desperately needed. I am not merely a mouthpiece for prophecy, he thought, I am a vessel of the divine, a channel for transformation. Approaching a group of weary laborers resting by the roadside, Jonah lifted his voice, quaking with raw vulnerability. I have come to share a message of repentance and mercy, but perhaps even more of my own struggles. I am Jonah, a man who once fled from fear into the depths of despair. I thought myself unworthy to speak, yet I stand before you today, humbled by the very truth of my existence. The men looked up, surprise etched across their faces, and their expressions softened as he continued. I believed in judgment, yet I have come to see that even within darkness lies the flicker of light. I too have faced storms in my soul, wrestling against the call of compassion. And while we are often quick to judge the errors of others, we must first rid ourselves of the brambles within our own hearts. As Jonah poured out his heart, he watched as the resonance of his words rippled through the gathering. Curiosity morphed into understanding. The men leaned in, their eyes gleaming with recognition. There is a city that calls for change, he continued, his voice gaining strength, and within it, people yearning for hope, just as I have struggled with my own fears. How often have I shut my heart to those who are lost, believing my judgments truer than my compassion? I once thought the Ninevites were beyond redemption, but I stand before you to say none of us are fewer than what we can become when love guides our path. A murmur ran through the crowd, and Jonah pressed on. Let us not be bound by our pasts or shackled by our pride. Together, let us forge connections that transcend the chaos of our lives. For in acceptance lies the power to heal both ourselves and each other. Amidst his proclamations, Jonah caught sight of the woman from before, the one who had spoken of love's embrace. She stood nearby, her eyes shining with encouragement. He saw the strength in her gaze, a reminder of the shared humanity they all possessed. It pushed him onward, igniting the flame in his heart. Tears glistened in the eyes of some in the crowd, and with each word, Jonah felt the walls surrounding his own heart begin to crumble. He was not there to condemn, he was there to connect, as flawed and as frail as anyone else, kindling a shared understanding among the people of Nineveh. The gathered men began to nod, murmuring to one another. One spoke, voice steady amid the rising tide of emotions. "You speak of mercy. We have long awaited a voice unclouded by judgment." Another added, "If you can rend your heart open, perhaps it is not too late for us either." The realization washed over Jonah. This was what he had feared and desired at once. The act of vulnerability had bridged a chasm he believed insurmountable. The hearts surrounding him, once deemed adversaries clothed in sin, began to beacon friendship, a call to unity and compassion, and just like that, the atmosphere shifted, the tension dissipated, replaced by a potent energy surging through the crowd. Encouraged by his declaration, others began to share their own torments and fears, interconnected stories resonating through the heart of Nineveh like notes in a symphony. Each voice contributed to a growing chorus of shared experiences and hopes. "I have lost things to the depths," a woman admitted, standing with her child at her side. "I felt abandoned in my struggles. But perhaps we, too, can learn to rise with each wave." Together. A ripple of agreement spread through the group, and something akin to relief enveloped them. Jonah sensed an instinctual awareness rise within the understanding that in unity, they could face their collective shadows. By the time daylight replaced the darkness, the streets of Nineveh were filled with newfound camaraderie. A spirit of connection blossomed, strong as the sunlight, urging them to look beyond the sins etched on their souls. "I once thought myself the prophet of their destruction," Jonah murmured, gazing out over the gathering. "But I see now that to speak of mercy is to invite grace into every corner of the heart." As the day continued to unfold, Jonah taught those who gathered around him, sharing not just the warning of destruction, but foundational principles of love, understanding, and forgiveness. Nineveh transformed in ways unimaginable. Hearts once hardened began to soften, opening avenues of communication among neighbors, fostering bonds of compassion that branched into every home and alleyway. And at that moment, Jonah realized himself was not just a bearer of a message from God, but a recipient of grace. By stepping through his fears to connect with those he once feared, Jonah learned that true prophecy was born not out of judgment but of shared humanity. As sunlight spilled across the city, illuminating the faces of those who had once been mere silhouettes of sin, Jonah felt liberated. Together, they cast aside the shadows of their pasts and began a journey toward a future laced with hope, love, and forgiveness. And so, as the sun dipped below the horizon that evening, the people of Nineveh gathered once more, not just for a message of warning but for the celebration of their shared journey. In that sacred space, a profound realization emerged: only through the nurturing of their hearts could they face the trials ahead. In his heart, Jonah smiled, knowing he had not only embraced his calling but had transformed the very essence of his spirit. He now understood that in the light of acceptance, one's own burdens could ignite flames of faith and courage in countless others, illuminating pathways for all. And in that moment, under the shared blanket of stars that twinkled over Nineveh, he realized a powerful truth: redemption does not lie in the absence of fear, but in the brave act of facing it together. A ripple of understanding danced in the air, echoing across hearts, forever changing, a revelation that would resonate across time and space for generations to come.